All right. Number 7, your side, 17. Okay, it's a bit of a doozy here, but we got to do it. Here we go. Refer to the information shown in figure 234.150, the minimum tap conductor. Okay, we are talking tap conductor here. Size for motor 2, that's important. Would be blank gauge or KC mill. The feeder conductors are the minimum permitted size and are protected with dual element time delay fuses of the maximum permitted rating. Okay. When we are looking at these, we absolutely have to do the entire calculation. This question in particular, we'll find out later that even if you didn't do the whole calculation, you made out okay. But for the sake of saking, we must do the entire calculation. Let's look at this real quick so we can show you what it's all about. I'm going to hop over to 430 and we're going to look at tap conductors for feeder taps here. Lives in 430.28. And let me find that real quick. Let me get my highlighter ready to roll. 430.28 is feeder taps. Now, these are going to be like any good tap conductor. Let's see. Like any good tap conductor, we are going to have distances, okay? 1 is going to be your 10-foot rule, 2 is going to be your 25-foot rule, and that's what we really need to pay attention to on this one is the 25-foot rule. So we have to read the whole question. It says left to right motors 1, 2, and 3 are supplied by a feeder. Feeder originates in a 122/43 phase 4-wire switchboard or panel board that feeds the gutter. The motor circuits are tapped in the gutter and terminate in either a fused safety switch or a breaker enclosure with an inverse time circuit breaker located near each motor. The tap length from the gutter to the switch for motor 1 is 8 feet. The tap length from the gutter to the switch for motor 2 is 17 feet. Okay, so we're going to be in that 25-foot range. Okay, the tap length from the gutter to the switch for motor 3 is 30 feet. Okay, all motors will be operated continuously. It even happens to tell us that bit of information there, which is great. Okay, we are 240 volt. We are 3-phase. We can verify that on all the motors individually, okay, which is always a good idea to double check. Outside of that, we're looking for horsepower ratings of these individual motors, okay. Motor number 1 is going to be a 20 horse, motor number 2 is going to be a 40 horse, and motor number 3 is just a little guy, a little 2-horse guy, okay. We must go in and size all of these because our feeder tap is going to say this bit right here in number 2. It has to have an ampacity of at least 1/3 that of the feeder conductors, be suitably protected from physical damage or enclosed in a raceway, and not be more than 25 foot in length. Okay, so that means what we're going to have to do is a comparative analysis between whatever the feeder tap says and whatever the calculation for the motor is. Okay, so we are going to do those calculations and we are going to put in the larger conductor. Okay, let's do it. Let's do the whole thing. So we got a 20, a 40, and a 2. We're going to go get our numbers out of the charts. I'm going to head to 430.250 again. I had a 2 horsepower coming in at 6.8 amps. I had a 20 horsepower coming in at 54 amps, and I had a 40 horsepower coming in at 104 spanking amps there. Okay, so I'm going to take those numbers and I'm just going to write them on into my thing here. 104 was the big one, 54 was the medium, and Baby Bear was 6.8 amps. Okay. Once I have those bits of information, we're going to take a look at our sizing instructions for a multi-motor. Okay, I'm going to go find that real quick. Let's see if I can find that real fast. Going down to, see if I can find it. Several motors or a motor and other loads. Okay, this is for sizing your conductors right here. And it says this: conductors supplying several motors, it's 43024, several motors or a motor and other loads shall have an ampacity not less than the sum of each of the following: 125% of the full load current rating of the highest motor. Okay, so our biggest motor gets 125%. And then it says the sum of the full load current ratings of the other motors in the group. Okay, and then 3 and 4 also can play, but they're talking about non-motor loads. Okay, so just keep an eye on that, and it's kind of the same concept: 100% of the non-continuous non-motor load, 125% of the continuous non-motor load. Okay, but what we're really looking at is those first two are going to be the most pertinent, especially for this question. So I'm going to take 125% of my biggest motor, which is going to be that bulldog there. Okay, so I'm going to do this calc. Let's start punching in these numbers. I'm going to take 104 times 1.25, since it is my largest motor. That's going to be 130 amps. Then I just add in these other two. I'm going to add in 54, and I'm going to add in 6.8. So I'm just going to leave it on the calculator. Plus 54 plus 6.8 equals. Okay, this feeder that's going to feed this group of motors must have an ampacity of 190.8 amps. Okay, so far so good. You with me? Did you fall asleep yet? It's a long one. Once I know what the feeder ampacity needs to be, I've got to go over and I've got to figure out what size wire that is. Yep, let's go. Okay, we might as well do the whole calculation. So I'm going to head over to my Holy Grail chart, and inside of the 75 degrees Celsius column, remember 110.14 still applies. We're over 100 amps, so we can use that 75 degrees Celsius column for our terminations. We are going to find us a conductor that is good for 190.8 amps. So I'm going to cruise on down the column there, and I'm going to find this 200 amps on a 3/0 is sufficient for that feeder. Okay, so I'm going to put a number 3/0 as the feeder for this this motor circuit. Now that we got that, we're still not there. We're still not there. We still have to figure out what it would be, right? So let's take a look at this motor tap rule again. So the motor tap must be at least a certain size based on 430/28. So we're going to jump back over to 430/28 and let's run that calculation. It says it has to have an ampacity of at least 1/3 that of the feeder conductors. Okay, so I'm going to take that 200 amps that 3/0 was worth. 200 amps that the 3/0 was worth, and I'm going to divide it by what, 3? Okay, it's got to have 1/3. Okay, so it must at a minimum have an ampacity of 66.67. The kids would love that. 66.67 amps. Okay, 66.67 amps. Okay. Now, 66.67 amps is not sufficient for the actual motor calculation. Okay, so that didn't matter too much right here, but for another question, it might matter more. So once we've got that 66.67 based off the feeder tap, okay, we just have to compare it to what the actual motor calculation came out to, which is 130, right? 104 times 1.25 is 130. So we needed a conductor that was good for 130 amps. So let's just go back to 310.16, and we're doing a comparison between a number 4 was the feeder tap number, and that 130 amps from a number 1. Okay, and that is just based on the regular standard calc for that motor. Okay, in this case, all of that legwork I did was kind of for the naught, right? Because we didn't necessarily have to do it to get to the answer, but in certain circumstances and situations, you will have to do this, and that whole portion will matter. I know it's long-winded. I know there's a lot to it. but that's how it goes. So for this one, a number one, just a straight motor calc based off the size of the motor would be perfect. Okay, but we have to do that comparison. The feeder tap versus the actual motor calculation. Okay, so there you go. There it is.